Come and discover Portugal with us. Please like, subscribe, and leave your comment. Your support and opinions are very important to us. Thank you. The city of Chaves is located in the north of Portugal, in the Alto Tâmega sub-region, bordering the Spanish community of Galicia. The human presence in this area dates back to the Paleolithic. The various hill forts scattered throughout the county are a legacy of the proto-historic era in these lands that would be conquered by the Romans in the 2nd century BC, culminating in the creation of the city of Aquae Flaviae. One of the most important monuments from the Roman era in Chaves is Trajan's Bridge, which was part of the Road 17 of the Antonine itinerary that connected Bácara Augusta, present-day Braga, to Astúrica, current Astorga in Spain. Its deck, crossing the Tâmega River, is 460 feet long and is supported by 16 to 18 round arches, 12 of which are visible. The arcade is supported by pillars with starlings. In the center of the bridge, on both sides, stand two pillar markers containing commemorative inscriptions. These columns originally stood on the right bank of the bridge, and the ones we see today are replicas. The column located downstream indicates that the bridge was built in the year 104 AD, bearing the following inscription: being Emperor Caesar Nerva Trajan Germanic Augustus, consul for the 5th time, father of the country, the inhabitants of Aquae Flaviae built this stone bridge at their own expense. The pillar on the upstream side is a copy of the so-called Column of the Peoples, the original of which, found in 1980 on the riverbed of the Tâmega River, is on display at the Museum of the Flaviense region. The inscription dates back to the year 79 AD and constitutes a dedication from 10 peoples of the region to the emperors Titus and Vespasian, the legate propraetor of Augustus, the legate and procurator of Augustus, and the 7th legion Gemina Felix. Trajan's Bridge was classified as a national monument in 1910. On the southern side of the bridge is the old parish of Madalena, where the imposing church of St. John of God stands out. Built in the early 18th century in Baroque style and designed by the military engineer Tomé de Távora e Abreu, it displays the coat of arms of King John V of Portugal in the top of its facade. Just 300 feet away from Trajan's Bridge we can find the Chaves Roman Baths Museum. It's one of the largest and best preserved Roman bathing complexes in all of Europe. The Aquae Flaviae baths had a vast collection area for mineral medicinal waters, with the springs being located about 10 feet below the level of the city streets. These were therapeutic baths, presenting a form and function quite different from that of the hygienic baths that existed in all Roman cities. It was sought out by thousands of patients who wanted to recover from traumatisms, digestive problems, and respiratory illnesses. The first phase of construction dates to the 1st century AD, a time from which only a hypocaust, a room, some floors, and traces of a wall remain. It was between the 2nd and 3rd centuries that a major renovation and expansion project took place here. The entrance was via a staircase on the southeast side that gave access to the palestra, an open courtyard measuring around 130 feet long and with the floor made of opus signinum, a cement made from grinded tiles. This busy space had to its left a long porticoed corridor covered by a vault supported by 30 feet high Tuscan columns. In the middle of this corridor there was a door leading to Room 2. Room 2 was a vaulted space, 49 feet long by 33 feet wide, that was used for people to undress and store their clothes before proceeding to the pools. This room gave access to Pool A, measuring 43 feet long, 26 feet wide and 5.3 feet deep. It was covered by a barrel vault over 30 feet high. The users entered the pool through 6 steps placed on the north side. Bathers looking for warmer water and total body immersion could access Pool C, which was smaller, 9.5 feet by 7.9 feet, and deeper, with the water being led here from an independent channel. A door on the west side took bathers to Pool B, the largest in these baths, measuring 45.8 feet long by 29.5 feet wide and 6.7 feet deep. It was surrounded by a staircase with 6 steps. At its bottom, 40 granite blocks were placed, which were used to support a wooden platform that reduced the depth of the pool to 5.2 feet, preventing bathers from burning their feet. Around Pool B there were 4 other side pools, smaller and for reserved use, and also a semicircular pool that would be used for bathing by spraying using a bucket. Another important structure in this complex was the Castellum Aquae, a reservoir that distributed water to pools A and C, filtering it through a layer of sand at the bottom. This filtration system still works today. The water was conveyed through cloacas, stone and brick sewage that allowed the pools to be supplied, but also to drain them for subsequent cleaning and maintenance. Outside the baths building was the Nymphaeum, a hot water spring around which a well and a temple were built, a place of worship dedicated to the nymphs, Roman water deities. At the end of the 4th century, a violent earthquake occurred that collapsed the vaults of the baths. In the 5th century, pools B and C were unblocked and isolated, but the complex would end up being abandoned in the 9th century. The collapse that followed the earthquake resulted in the preservation of several objects that were collected by archaeologists. Some are on display at the Roman Baths Museum, including votive altars, stone sculptures, and tiles. The most notable find was a Pergus, with only 2 more objects of this type ever found worldwide. It's a small bronze tower, finely crafted using a metal drilling technique called opus interrasile, which was used to throw dice and prevent cheating. The baths were also a place for socializing and playing, with dice, wooden and bone game pieces being found here, as well as engraved game boards on the steps of Pool B. The Roman Baths of Chavres have been classified as a national monument since 2012. The Chavres Castle is located in the heart of the city's historic center, 1,200 feet above sea level. All that remains of the original medieval structure is the keep and part of the wall. The keep, entirely built in granite ashlar, has a square plan, measuring 39 feet on each side, imposing itself on the city's skyline with its 92 feet in height. In its walls there are some arrow slits and, on the east side, wooden balconies. It is crowned by merlons and battlements, with the small semicircular balconies at the corners supported by machicolations. The access to the interior of the tower is placed on the first floor through an angled stone staircase that leads to a door with a round arch surmounted by a royal coat of arms with 19 castles. The barbican that encircles the tower is surrounded by a chemin de ronde and, on the southwest facade, has a round arched door defended by a protruding balcony with machicolations. This tower is presently surrounded by an artistic garden, delimited by 17th century walls. The construction of the original Chavres castle is attributed to Count Odoario in the 9th century. Between the 9th and 12th centuries, the town came under Muslim rule on 3 occasions, being definitively conquered in 1160 by the brothers Garcia and Rui Lopes, knights of King Afonso Henriques, who rewarded them with the domains of Chavres and its castle. In 1212, Alfonso IX of Leon invaded this territory and conquered Chaves, whose possession was only returned to Portugal in 1231, following negotiations between King Sancho II of Portugal and Ferdinand III of Leon and Castile. In 1253, Chaves hosted the wedding of King Afonso III of Portugal with Beatrice of Castile. This same monarch granted the first charter to the town on May 15, 1258, dating from that time the reconstruction of the castle. King Denis of Portugal continued the construction started by his predecessor, completing the keep and the town's walls. The mason's marks engraved on the stone blocks by the medieval masons who carved them can still be seen on the keep's walls. Following the succession crisis of 1383-1385, Chaves was donated by King John I of Portugal to the constable Nuno Álvares Pereira, who bequeathed it as a dowry to his daughter Beatrice upon her marriage to Afonso, 1st Duke of Bragança. In 1514, King Manuel I granted a new charter to Chaves. As part of the Restoration War, rampart walls were erected around the town and 2 forts were also built, which will be explored later. From these 17th century walls, some curtains have been preserved, namely those of the castle's bastion, which surround the keep, and that on its inner cliff were transformed into a garden. On the corner between Rua do Sol and Rua 25 de Abril, to the southeast of the keep, it's still possible to see another section of these 17th century walls that formed part of the Amoreira bastion. A little above this location, on Rua do Postigo das Manas, the remains of another section of walls are also visible, on which some houses were in the meantime built. To the northwest of the keep, on Rua Maria Reta, another part of a wall remains, later used as a foundation for the construction of private houses. Nowadays, the keep of the Chaves Castle houses a military museum where we can see original pieces and replicas that span the Portuguese military history from the Middle Ages to the 20th century. Internally, the tower is divided into 4 floors. The ground floor contains a cistern, and the 3 upper floors have barrel-vaulted ceilings where we can find windows with alcoves as well as fireplace chimneys. At the top of the tower we can see some machicolations opened on the ground, which were used to protect the tower in the event of an attack by dropping stones or pouring hot liquids. It is also a place with a wonderful view over the city. The Camões Square, located behind the castle tower, has been the nerve center of the city of Chaves for centuries. Several monuments of high historical and artistic interest are concentrated here. Previously, this space was known as Main Square or Main Guard Square. In documents from the beginning of the 18th century, the square appeared under the name Toral das Olhas. This name indicates that this was once a place for livestock fairs, but also for the sale of clay jugs used to transport liquids, which were known as olhas, a term that is still used today in neighboring Galicia. On the northwest side of the square, the Chaves City Council building stands out, built in the 19th century as the manor of the Majorat of Vilar de Perdiz. In 1861, still unfinished, it was acquired by the municipality to be used as its headquarters. Next to the town hall is the small chapel of Our Lady of Loreto, popularly known as Chapel of the Holy Head. It was built at the end of the 17th century in the Mannerist style. Tradition indicates that the relics of Saint Boniface Martyr are deposited here. Directly opposite is the old palace of the Dukes of Bragança, originally built in the 15th century and profoundly altered in the 18th century to house the main guard barracks and the military prison. Since 1978, it has housed the Museum of the Fluviense region. Several archaeological pieces are on display here, ranging from prehistory to the Roman period. They include ceramic remains as well as stone sculptures, such as this granite stele statue. Created in the Bronze Age, around 3,000 years ago, it is anthropomorphic and represents clothing in a stole armed with a dagger and decorated with a necklace. Here you can also find the enigmatic Venus of Virago with a prehistoric profile but found on a Roman context, making its dating and contextualization difficult. The remains of the Roman Aquae Flaviae found over the decades are multiple and include important pieces such as the Column of the Peoples, a replica of which we saw previously on Trajan's Bridge. Also from this period we can see inscribed altars, including two that identify Jupiter Optimus and Maximus as the patron saint of this municipality, as well as a wide collection of milestones. Likewise, dating from Roman times, there's a bronze falera, an ornamental piece used by Roman soldiers in their armor or on their horses, with 4 rings in the corners through which the attachment straps passed. Next to the former palace of the Dukes of Bragança is the Church of Misericordia, a notable 17th century building that marks the Camões Square with its refined Baroque-style architecture. The main facade is organized into 2 floors and 3 sections, marked by lateral pilasters with frames and capitals. Frontally, there are 8 overlapping Solomonic columns with composite capitals. On the lower floor there is a gallery with 3 round arches, and on the upper floor there are 3 windows that open onto a balcony with wooden balustrades. At the top the facade is crowned by a pediment with a sculpture of the Mater Omnium. The gallery has 3 straight-framed portals that give access to the interior of the church, which has a single nave with a wooden floor and the walls completely covered with blue and white tile panels. It is covered with a wooden ceiling of the trough type, with polychrome paintings, representing in the center the visit of the Virgin to her cousin Saint Elizabeth. The paintings were created in 1743 by the painter Jerónimo de Rocha Braga, as indicated in the cartouches in the ceiling. On the Gospel side there's a pulpit with a wooden balustrade, decorated with polychrome and golden phytomorphic paintings, supported on a quadrangular framed granite base. The high altar is in gilded and polychrome carved wood, decorated with cherubs, curls, foliage and volutes. It features a concave plan divided into 3 vertical axes. In the center there's a large tribune flanked by Solomonic columns, housing a throne under a coffered roof. The tabernacle is crowned by an image of the crucified Christ. On the side axes there are 2 niches, the one on the right having an image of the Lady of Tears. The tiles that completely cover the walls of the nave were created in the 18th century, being attributed to the workshop of Oliveira Bernardes. They are divided into 22 panels separated by scrolled consoles, acanthos, cartouches and cherubs. They depict episodes from the Old Testament, such as the wedding of Canaan and the burning of Sodom, and from the New Testament, such as the resurrection of Lazarus, the prison of Jesus and the Calvary. The choir loft of the church, supported on the gallery, has a wooden floor and a balustrade carved in granite, under which there are 3 more tile panels depicting biblical episodes. At the southeast end of Camões Square is the Church of St. Mary Major, parish church of Chaves, an important temple founded in the Middle Ages that has been altered over the centuries in different architectural styles. The main facade features a Mannerist round arch portal flanked by pilasters that support a triangular pediment topped by an oculus. On the left side stands the bell tower. The tower is divided into 3 levels, the first having a round arch on Tuscan pilasters, inside which we can find a Romanesque-style portal. This portal has a flat tympanum and has 4 round archivolts, decorated with geometric motifs, half-spheres, and phytomorphic motifs, leaves and flowers. The archivolts are supported by a total of 4 columns, 2 on each side, with capitals decorated with plant stylizations, topped by corbels with wavy decorations. The second level of the tower has narrow openings on the facades. The third features 5 modillions with anthropomorphic figures, with 2 round arch openings on each face. It is covered all the way around by a bullnose frieze. On the west-facing side there is a bas-relief representing Christ in Majesty. The tower's top is a cornice based on modillions placed on the corners and covered by a tile spire. On the north-facing facade of the church there's a Renaissance side portal in a round arch and framed by pilasters based on plinths with beveled faces and shafts decorated with grotesques. At the top there are 2 medallions with representations of the busts of Saint Peter and Saint Paul, topped by frieze with phytomorphic and zoomorphic decoration. The whole is topped by a triangular pediment with pinnacles. Outside, on this side of the temple, the lantern that tops the dome of one of its side chapels also stands out. It illuminates its interior through the 8 windows in its drum. The rear facade of the church is reinforced by 2 buttresses on the corners and has, in the center, a niche in a round arch with spherical decorations housing an image of St. Mary Major. This exterior wall of the chancel ends in a frieze with a cornice and 2 gargoyles bearing the inscription "Against gossip these figs," flanked by the representation of 2 hands making the fig sign associated with protection against bad omens. The interior of the church is divided into 3 staggered naves, the central one being the tallest. On the epistle side there is a baptistry protected by an iron railing with an octagonal granite font decorated with phytomorphic elements. The naves are divided into 5 sections separated by round arches. They are covered with a wooden ceiling. Along the side walls there are 6 chapels in round arches, which contain polychrome carved altarpieces in grey, blue and gold. The triumphal arch is pointed, being topped by a panel of illustrated blue and white Baroque tiles dating back to the 18th century, representing the Assumption of Our Lady. The chancel features an altarpiece with marbled and gold paintings and is covered by a beautiful Leone vault. At mid-height there is a frieze with an inscription alluding to the construction of this chapel, completed in 1561. In the nave on the Gospel side is the Chapel of the Holy Sacrament, whose round-arched entrance is flanked by panels of 19th century tiles depicting the virtues of justice and faith. This chapel is covered by a dome with a lantern, which we saw previously from the outside. It has a black wood railing with metal inscriptions, and it also contains an 18th century altarpiece in polychrome carved wood. It was in this church that the knights Ruy and Garcia Lopes were buried. They definitively conquered Chaves from the Muslims in 1160, later receiving it as a donation from King Afonso Henriques. Also worth mentioning is the late Baroque organ in green, red and gold polychrome carving, supported by 2 corbels and profusely decorated with anthropomorphic and phytomorphic elements. This church has been classified since 1997 as a property of public interest. North of the parish church is the Republika Square, on whose center we can see the pillory of Chaves. In fact, it's a memory of the original, which dated back to 1515 and was dismantled in the 19th century during the leveling of the square. The monument we see corresponds to a reconstruction made in the 20th century using elements from different origins. It has been classified as a property of public interest since 1933. It would be in this area that the civic center of Aquae Flaviae stood, with its forum and capitol. From here, the Decumanus would start, corresponding to the current Direita Street, which was a road oriented east-west in Roman settlements. Walking through the streets of the historic center of Chaves allows visitors to discover a long bi-millennial history where there are surprises and points of interest around every corner. After the invasions of the so-called barbarian peoples, namely the Suevi, Roman colonization ended. In the 5th century, internal wars between Remismund and Frumar, who disputed the Suevic throne, culminated in the almost complete destruction of the city. This conflict also resulted in the arrest of Aidatius, bishop of Aquae Flaviae and notable figure of his time, author of a pioneering chronicle where he described the fall of Roman society and the rise of the Suevian kingdom in the Iberian Peninsula. The ensuing Visigothic rule lasted until the 8th century, when the Muslim invasions put an end to it. The dispute that developed between Muslims and Christians lasted until the 12th century. Cultural remnants from that time have permeated the folklore of the entire Trás-os-Montes region, expressed through legends and mythical traditions created around enchanted moors and hidden treasures. The richness of this intangible heritage, which survived through oral tradition, combines the enigmatic prehistoric structures, such as dolmens and hill forts, with stories of Islamic princesses and Christian warriors, in a tangle that kept the past alive in popular memory. The fort of São Francisco is located in the parish of Santa Maria Maior on the north side of Chaves. Next to it is the chapel of Our Lady of Lapa, built in the 18th century, which has an impressive Rococo-style facade. The fort was part of the defences of Chaves, a fortified complex that has been classified as a national monument since 1938. Its floor plan is in the shape of a regular star, with 4 bastions located at the corners of a rectangle. Its facade faces south, presenting, in the middle, a round arch portal, above which the coat of arms of Portugal stands. There's another portal in the wall facing west. Its construction took place between 1644 and 1647 by order of the military governor João de Sousa de Silveira in the so-called Alto da Pedisqueira, a place where a Franciscan convent already existed. The convent of Our Lady of the Rosary, the name by which the fort is also known, was built between 1635 and 1637. Its church has a Mannerist structure with a rectangular floor plan and a single nave. Its entrance is preceded by a narthex, which on the left side gives access to the chapel of St. John the Baptist, on which center we can find a holy water font. It is covered by a barrel vault with mural paintings. The interior of the church has walls plastered and painted white, and on the wall on the epistle side we can see some painted wood boards that would belong to an old ceiling. The triumphal arch is round and stands on Tuscan pilasters, being topped by a gilded pelmet. It is flanked by 2 collateral altarpieces, in polychrome and gilded carved wood, placed at an angle. The chancel is lit by 2 windows, topped by multicolored carved pelmets. It has a high altar with a concave shape and in pink, blue and gold polychrome carved wood. The fort of São Hotel is located on top of a hill on the north side of Chaves, complementing the city's defense along with the castle and the fort of São Francisco. Its construction took place between 1664 and 1668 in the context of the Restoration War by order of General Francisco Freire de Andrade e Sousa, who was then military governor of the province of Trás-os-Montes. It has a regular star plan comprising 4 polygonal bastions arranged regularly at the corners of straight curtains, forming a square surrounded by a moat and wall. The main facade faces south and has, in the center, a raised portal, framed by powerful pillars that support the structure of the drawbridge. The portal, in a round arch, is topped by the coat of arms of Portugal, which is flanked by 2 cartouches containing an inscription pertaining to the construction of this fortification. The fort of São Hotel, which is currently closed to the public, is part of the group of fortifications of Chaves, which was classified as a national monument in 1938. Thank you for discovering Portugal with us. If you liked the video, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel to follow our new releases.